Very good morning to all of you. I have the honor and privilege of starting off the proceedings on the second day today. And we are starting off with a keynote lecture by Ambassador Kumar. And I am very pleased to provide these few words of introduction to the speaker today. Ambassador Kumaran is an electronics and communications engineer from IIT Madras, and he belongs to the 1992 batch of the Indian Foreign Service. During an early stint in the Embassy of India at Cairo, he learnt Arabic at the American University there. And his early career took him to various places in the Middle East and other places, including Tripoli in Libya, Brussels in Belgium, Islamabad in Pakistan, and Colombo in Sri Lanka, before his first ambassadorial assignment at Qatar as the Ambassador of India at Doha in 2016. And he then moved to Singapore as the High Commissioner of India in 2019, and in 2023 he returned to India, and he is now at the Ministry of External Affairs as a Special Secretary, ER and DPA. In between, he also had a little over 2-year stint as a regional passport officer in Bengaluru, Namma Bengaluru, and I'm pleased to welcome him back to our great city. Ambassador Kumaran, we are ready for your keynote. Thank you.
Professor Ajay Sood, Principal Scientific Advisor, Government of India, my colleague, Mr. Pawan Kapoor, Deputy NSA, other colleagues from the Ministry, Professor G. Rangarajan, Director, Indian Institute of Science, other eminent scientists, research scholars, policy makers, distinguished invitees, friends and colleagues, good morning and namaskar. It gives me great pleasure to speak to you all at the first technology dialogue being held at the Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru. My compliments to the organizers for holding this dialogue to discuss multiple areas of relevance. When it is about science, technology, and innovation, what better place than Bengaluru to gather and deliberate upon? And IISc as the venue is, of course, the icing on the cake. Friends, we all know that historically, path-breaking advances in human civilization and epochal changes in world history have always had strong technological underpinnings. We currently find ourselves at the cusp of 3 transitions: the digital transition, the industrial transition, and the energy transition. The policy choices we make today to address these transitions will not only affect our environment and our prosperity, but will also hold the key to our national security, economic resilience, and international standing in the coming years. Therefore, climate change and technology considerations are increasingly integrated into foreign policy and geopolitical strategies, and many countries use technology and innovation as strategic assets. Some technologies involve complex global supply chains for critical materials. Control over these resources can become a source of geopolitical tension and competition, giving rise to new coalitions to hedge against the undue concentration of supply in the hands of one player. Countries controlling critical mineral resources might also seek to limit access to maintain geopolitical leverage. Dear friends, we've had a fair amount of success in India in leveraging technology for development, showcasing scalable, inclusive, and cost-effective solutions. Our advancements in sectors like information technology, digital infrastructure, and space technology are driving innovation and economic growth. We also have the talent pool and human resource capabilities to harness the technology domain for scaling new heights. A number of national missions in critical technology sectors have been launched in recent years with unprecedented levels of funding from the government. Our vibrant startup culture has attracted worldwide attention. Today, we have the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. Where there were hardly 100 startups in 2014, today there are nearly 125,000 registered startups. India's DPI initiatives have revolutionized financial inclusion, service delivery, and identity verification, reaching even the most remote areas. Affordable tech services, low-cost 5G deployment, and digital literacy programs are enabling rural and underserved communities to access opportunities and are contributing to inclusive development. We are leveraging technology to address climate challenges through renewable energy, smart cities, and green technology initiatives. Precision farming, IoT-enabled tools, and agri-market platforms are modernizing Indian agriculture, increasing productivity and farmer incomes. E-commerce platforms like the eNAM, National Agricultural Market, are integrating farmers into the digital economy. India's space program, led by ISRO, is delivering low-cost, high-impact solutions for satellite technology, remote sensing, and navigation. Space technology is also being utilized for disaster management, agriculture monitoring, and improving connectivity in rural areas. India is also pursuing progress in cutting-edge areas like artificial intelligence. We'll have dedicated sessions on this later during the day. Quantum computing and blockchain to enhance governance and drive economic growth. India's national AI strategy focuses on using AI for healthcare, including telemedicine, education, agriculture, financial inclusion, and public safety and crime detection. Our success stories demonstrate the power of technology to transform governance, empower citizens, and bridge the digital divide. Our steps towards harnessing technology for development initiatives have been appreciated even in geographically distant regions. These models are being replicated globally, positioning India as a knowledge hub for digital transformation. Our march towards fulfilling the vision of a Viksit Bharat will be determined in large part by our ability to emerge as a serious technology innovator and incubator on how effectively we can access critical technologies and how judiciously we deploy technology in our development initiatives. Dear friends, every consequential external engagement we are pursuing today has a significant technology dimension. Whether it is traditional strategic technologies, critical digital technologies, emerging technologies, or green and clean technologies, they collectively hold immense opportunities for deeper cooperation, collaboration, and engagement between India and its key partners across the world. Along this path, we also find ways to ensure that our technological progress supports the aspirations of the global south. When India grows, it takes the world along. And thus, technology is a key component of our development partnerships. This includes agricultural technologies, health innovations, and renewable energy solutions that are more relevant and adaptable to similar socio-economic conditions. The ITEC scheme, for example, has not only become a visible tool of India's bilateral diplomacy, but has also become a recognized name in the global capacity building landscape, having trained more than 200,000 officials from more than 160 countries in both civilian and defense sectors. Our DPI growth story is the talk of the world now. At the multilateral level, DPI was made a cornerstone of India's G20 presidency and advocacy at international development institutions. We have shown willingness to advise, develop capacities, and share our DPI technology, especially to developing countries, and have signed several MOUs from Africa to the Caribbean with this objective in mind. Several pilot projects are already in progress to promote digitalization, enhance financial connectivity, and reduce transaction costs. Skill development in vocational skills in IT, as well as higher education courses in computer science, have been a major success story of India's capacity building partnership. Till date, India has executed 50 centers of excellence in IT, CEIT projects, in 47 countries of Central Asia, West Asia, Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific Islands. Nearly 190,000 trainees have successfully completed CDAC certified courses in advanced subjects like high performance computing, big data, AI, machine language, and other computer programming languages. Dear friends, I would like to draw your attention to some of our important tech partnerships and initiatives with countries in the global north. We've already had earlier speakers yesterday mention some of these. India and the UK launched the Technology Security Initiative to elevate the strategic partnership between the two countries to the next level. TSI builds upon the ambitious bilateral cooperation agenda set out in the India-UK Roadmap 2030 and will bring into sharper focus collaboration in critical and emerging technologies across a number of priority areas. The India-US ISET and the India-EU Trade and Technology Council have been set up to deepen the strategic partnerships and address key trade, technology access, and strategic challenges. The agenda of Quad includes working towards enhancing technology innovation and harnessing emerging technologies for the benefit of people across the Indo-Pacific. In order to accelerate investments in critical and emerging technologies, the Quad Investors Network was launched in 2023. The Quad has also finalized a memorandum of cooperation for semiconductor supply chains contingency network to facilitate collaboration in addressing semiconductor supply chain risks. Much as technical and technological progress is important, governance and regulation are also equally critical. On the policy front, there are major challenges, especially in pursuing regulatory approaches without hindering innovation, and of course, the issues of ethical use, competition, and de-risking. I am confident that the technology dialogue will prove to be an important platform to deliberate on these issues and come up with new ideas for moving forward. I wish you all success and productive deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Kumaran. And now I call upon Shagun to come here and tell us a bit about what we have in store for us during the rest of the day. Shagun?
Thank you, Professor Abhinandanan, and thank you, Ambassador Kumaran, for that insightful keynote to start our day with. Now we are moving on to the first panel of the day, titled Fostering Collaborations for Quantum Revolution. I am tempted to actually introduce the panel, but our moderator for this panel, Luke, who has flew in from London, is excited to do so. So I'm asking Luke to join us on stage and introduce the panel and take the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the panel discussion on fostering collaboration for the quantum revolution in India. Just want to start by saying it's a real pleasure to have the opportunity to introduce and moderate this session with what will be such an illustrious group of people that will be joining me up here in a moment. Thank you. Just to frame the session very briefly with some additional context. India is advancing rapidly in quantum technologies with efforts in computing, simulation, also sensing, as well as practical applications in drug discovery, material science, and cryptography. Today's discussion, I'm hoping that will elucidate some of the real-world benefits of this and how we can harness those through collaboration specifically across multiple stakeholders, both regionally and internationally. And importantly, interdisciplinary collaboration amongst researchers, institutions, and also innovators as we accelerate progress within this transformative field. That's enough from me. I feel I could request the panel to join me on stage, and also when you arrive, if you could do a brief round of introductions, that would be wonderful. You have a presentation? Okay. So you want me to come down? Okay. Okay. Of course. I will jump down. I think Professor Sood has a presentation he would like to give before we kick off the panel discussion.
No, I think it will be okay. Let's see. Present karo. Don't remove the chair. Don't worry. It only cut half of the slide, so that's okay. Let's see the presentation, see how much it cuts. Is it okay? Actually, it is a quiz also. You have to guess what is below the sofa. So let's see if in the morning you can be alert, you can do it. It's like spot the difference. Okay, good. Welcome to this session. I am filling in because otherwise there is no presentation on what National Quantum Mission is. So I am filling that because it so happens I am very closely associated with this mission right from the time it was conceived in Prime Minister's Science, Technology and Innovation Advisory Council a few years back when I was a member of PM STIC. Professor Vijay Raghavan was the PSA. At that time we had, it was very clear to us that this is a technology which will really be extremely important in coming years. And then the COVID took over and we lost those 2 years. So at that time, when the presentation was made to Honorable PM, that time it was not a hype word at that time. Hardly we were talking of quantum technologies in every forum. Now today, in like yesterday and today, if somebody has a count, quantum technology must have been mentioned 15 times. That was not the case 5 years back. So that it only reflects the exponential speed at which this technology is going to make a difference as a national strategic importance. You must have seen very recently, US has put a blanket ban on all things related to quantum computing. So only the friendly countries will have access to the chips, not the chips, but the quantum computers and all other things. So what it reflects is that it's a very strategic field where almost 30 billion dollar investment is already committed by government and private sector. And it's not a surprise that many countries are worried that how they would be quantum safe in coming years. Because it's not a question whether you need it, it's only a question when will it become a threat. So it is going to become a threat sooner than later, because all your security, all your communication would come under scrutiny if we don't pay attention when the quantum computers become really powerful to break the codes. So it's not a hype, it's not a fear, it's not, but it's a reality of the world which we have to live with. And definitely in the technology dialogue, it has a very important place. And the international collaboration are very essential before it becomes too competitive. It will become competitive in coming years. Let's have no difficulty in understanding this. We have to see what is the pre-competitive cooperation and collaboration which is mutually beneficial, and that is essential. And there couldn't have been a better time because it's year of quantum science, 2025. So dialogue is at the right time. And we have many reports which have come up. I am sure it will be mentioned during the course. But let me give you a brief overview of the mission just to place in perspective our this thing. So this is one of the missions, as I mentioned, and it is being led by Department of Science and Technology, and other departments are participating, Department of Space, Department of Atomic Energy, MIT, and Department of Telecommunication. So it's a whole of government approach, and this has 4 thematic hubs which have been created in the last few months: quantum computing, quantum communication, quantum sensing, and one what you cannot see is quantum materials and devices. Now this is the key milestones which have already been happening. 4 thematic hubs have been established, which means there was a competitive process to identify that. So 4 thematic hubs have been announced, and the flow of resources is going to happen very, very soon. So it has funds for us to the T hubs, and with every hub there are technical groups. So we have 4 hubs in 4 areas, and each hub is multi-institutional, and each technical group is also multi-institutional. So it is not a single PI-centric mission. That is a big difference from the other funding, and it has prototype development goal, product development and sectorial application, and business and startups and job market. So it is a mission for 8 years, and this will cover all the things. Now this is a slide which is schematic. I know you can't read it, but it just reflects, for example, in quantum computing, IISc is the hub, and there are technical groups which are 4 in number, and each technical group has a lead institute. Similarly, in quantum communication, it is IIT Madras and Department of Telecommunication. Quantum sensing, IIT Bombay. When I say this is the lead institute, even in that there are many other institutions. So I just wanted to tell the structure of this, and so this is just a snapshot that it has 14 technical groups comprising 152 researchers in the country. So in all these 4 things, from 43 institutions and across 17 states and 2 union territories. So you can see the map, how these institutions are spread. So it's entirely collaborative, and which will also have links with the startups and industry for each technical group and hub. And it will have international cooperation built into it via technical hubs, via technology groups. So this is the structure, so this is just to those who are very curious minded, which institute, whether we are figuring in or not. It is there, it's all on the website. Which are the bold ones are the institutes which are leading, which are the lead ones, and so on. So this is just to tell you that the startup are going to be an integral part of this mission. So even before hubs were announced, each hub will interact with the startups, and startups will be nurtured and whatever has to be done. But even before that happened, this startups, 8 of them have already been approved, and funding is going through. So this is again through the National Mission on Cyber Physical System. Under that, this has come, and now under our quantum mission also more startups will be funded. So this is a grant with some appropriate processes, which is all on the website. It's a very, very transparent process, which is all listed there. So 8 of them, and there are 2 big startups, Q New Lab and Q Pi I, and all the names you can read if you can see them. So capacity building, very, very important theme, because though we have people engaged in this, we need to build that very, very fast, very strong. So under this, many programs are being launched. So very recently, of course, MS program in quantum technology, IISr Pune was launched, and IISc Bangalore has been running this quantum technology, or whatever it's called, master's program for last 3 or 4 years. And now AICTE had commissioned a whole process with Professor Arindam Ghosh from IISc Bangalore Physics Department as the lead, and there are many of, some of you might be in the audience, have come out with very, very nice syllabus, very, very good syllabus, which takes care of this. There are 6 courses, they are all, I think, on the website now, and now institutions will be asked to bid who wants to start BTech minor in quantum technologies. So this will happen from this coming session. So already on a fast track, and few institutions have been requested to make a model course for each vertical. So that also is happening. So this is something, a very high priority for all of us, because we need the informed and the learned people to do this. This is not needed only for India, but for the international community as well. So I think with this, I just wanted to give you a sense of what is happening in the quantum mission. There is a mission governing board, which is chaired by Dr. Ajay Chaudhary, earlier in HP Computers, and some of us are members. And then there is a mission council, which looks at all these programs and all, and PSA chairs it with other stakeholders. So happy to say that a program is being launched, is being pursued and pushed at a on speed with scale, and we hope that international cooperation would also be nurtured under this mission mode. Thank you very much. Now you can all come. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Sood. I think if we just do a quick round of introductions, Professor Sood, you could probably, entirely up to you, but you could probably sit this one out. I think you've done enough introductions as you've gone. Yeah. Professor Sood. Next. Oh.
Does this work? Yeah, it works, so you can hold on. So you're sure you don't want to reintroduce yourself, Professor Sood? Yeah. You're good. Okay, so I'll introduce myself. I'll just say who I am and where I'm from. So this is Urbasi Sinha. I'm a professor at the Raman Research Institute in Bengaluru here, a couple of kilometers from IISc, so not very far. I also hold a Canada Excellence Research Chair at the University of Calgary in Canada. And here I'm representing a second hat, which is of the Open Quantum Institute. So I am in the advisory board of the Open Quantum Institute at Geneva, and I'm the OQI ambassador as a liaison between our national quantum mission and the ambassador of India and Switzerland. So I think that's good, yeah?
It's very good, thank you.
Hi, Amith Singhee. I'm director of IBM Research in India and CTO for IBM India. And long-time collaborator with this great institution in some other areas. So looking forward to the discussion.
Hi, I'm Professor Andrew White from the University of Queensland in Australia, and I'm also here as the Director of the Centre for Engineered Quantum Systems, which has been running for 14 years in Australia, trying to build quantum machines that have impact on the economy. So I guess that's why I'm here. Also looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. It's a privilege to have a panel which is so equally dispersed across the different stakeholder groups within building out and local economies of quantum technology, so excited for the conversation. I'm terrible at holding these microphones, I apologise, you have to keep reminding me. Before I go into a question that's a little bit more open to the panel, Professor Sood, I wonder if I could actually just start with you and pick up on a point that you were alluding to and speaking about in your presentation just a moment ago. You spoke to the point of this year beginning to open up a dialogue with other nations in terms of the collaboration piece. And I do think that 2025 being the International Year of Quantum should be tremendously supportive of that, as just more eyes will be on the industry. However, I guess there's a world where we know that collaboration is critical to drive growth, but at the same time there is this undercurrent of, I believe, of national drives towards quantum supremacy. Do you feel like there might be how do you navigate that? Because they're quite polar opposite in terms of what they really are. Driving supremacy versus collaboration, and how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I alluded to that. It is going to be an issue in coming years. Right now, since we are at an early stage and a lot of technology breakthroughs have yet to come, in my mind, it's not that we are all at the, unlike HPC, which has reached a high level of maturity. So people are still willing to cooperate, but I have a feeling it will go on in a pre-competitive area. Because these products will come in the market, they are already there in quantum communication and quantum sensing already. So I still feel there is a tremendous scope in that. And another area where a lot of cooperation will happen is the PQC, post-quantum cryptography. That is another area where all countries are seized with the fear that will they be quantum safe in coming years. So right now PQC in the public domain is only, we talk of NIST algorithm, NIST protocol. But that's not the end of the world actually, if you think of it. Whole humanity cannot be using only NIST, this thing. So I am sure a lot of work is happening, which is highly mathematics driven. And this is another area which I think is very, very open for international cooperation. Because here, what you need is really the brain power. Because you are still going to use HPC to implement PQC. Sorry for abbreviation, but 100% of the people in this hall know it, so I am assuming all. So what I am trying to say is, in some areas it will become competitive. Supposing if you are talking of gravimeters to detect submarines, if you are talking of mines, obviously some countries will have some things to watch out. But still there is a lot in the non-strategic area which is still needed. So I have a feeling that people will do with caution, and people would be cooperating on many of them, but not all.
So do you think, you're suggesting that, and it would make sense, the areas where collaboration might be more complex will be where the applications are surrounding things like defense and security, where it's a little bit more commercial.
Some applications might be under this thing, but I have a feeling since most of these are dual use. So this strategic civil thing is completely intermeshed in this technology. It's not only one-sided. So I have a feeling now this all the embargo which have been announced by US in the last 1 month or maybe less than that is very recent, right? Before 19th it happened. And that is right now on quantum computing mostly. but other things will also come under that, I'm sure. So each country have to become actually self-sufficient in this.
For sure.
Once you have that goal, people will find ways which areas up to what level they can cooperate. So like PQC is another example where it is totally open to everyone to break that code. I have a feeling there is a huge merit in this, and though there is a niche area for each country, but there is enough around for cooperation, not only with countries, but between industry and academia, which is an integral part, and we have Amith ji with us. So this will be completely intermeshing both.
For sure. Yeah, I certainly believe and hope so. I think a consistent belief of quantum across various nations is everyone's aligned on the real world benefits, societal benefits of it, equally that it's not a straight path forward to get there. So I think collaboration is absolutely key. Professor Sinha, I think you wanted to add a little bit to that.
Should I add some? Yeah, so I mean, and of course I agree completely with Professor Sood. One thing I have always felt in this, because I've been working in this domain for almost 25 years now, so there has to be a difference between what we call science and what we call technology. And I think that is exactly what Professor Sood said, that many of these things are not at a level where we are at such a competitive level that it's very high-end technology already. And so as scientists, we of course will benefit from collaboration and cooperation without having to think about anything else, because that is how science has always progressed. Whether it's quantum or anything else, we have always benefited from talking to each other and co-development. So the scientific co-development is going to be very important, because otherwise we will keep reinventing the wheel. I mean, if something Andrew has already done, which is at a scientific level, I would like to benefit from that, and vice versa. So I think reinvention should not happen. But then, of course, comes the point that, when we come to something which we now deem as technology, then we need to be protective of it, and I think we have examples of countries being already vocally protective of some of this. So we need to become self-reliant in the technology sector, and so this distinction between what is science and what is technology needs to be understood not only by us scientists, but also at the higher level of policy makers and so on. So I just want to take a couple of examples, because Professor Sood used PQC as an example, so I will do the QKD example, which is quantum key distribution, another area of quantum communications. Now that is where we already have quite a bit of products available in different countries, including India. But one thing maybe a misconception that some people who are not directly from this field may have, that if I use a QKD product to secure something, and Gopal uses a QKD product to secure something, it's not, if we know each other's protocols, doesn't mean that we will be able to know each other's secure, transmission of information, because it's secure because of laws of quantum mechanics. So at some level, this knowledge of the protocol does not really harm anyone. So this is something we need to remember, because maybe there is a confusion there sometimes, I feel. But in communications, one of the things which doesn't get talked about a lot is actually entanglement distribution-based quantum repeaters, and quantum memory-based repeaters. And this is the most R&D focused area globally. I mean, we have very few, maybe 2 or 3 nodes, even globally. And so this is where we will really benefit a lot through collaboration, because we are all actually still figuring out what is the best quantum memory. There's a lot of R&D. And so this will really benefit, because we are looking towards the global quantum internet. And if we don't cooperate, then I don't see how we will have something global. If we have our own local things, and they have to talk to each other to make it global. And in the computing sector, Professor Sood, while of course the US has done what it has done, we know, and we have to see what happens, but at least there are some machines available, for instance from IBM and others, and so algorithmic development can benefit from using those resources. We need to become self-sufficient in our hardware parallelly, so that we can perhaps be a little cheaper to ourselves, because these things are very expensive. So we can perhaps create hardware where we can have some benefit as Indians to use it and become self-reliant. And I think that is our goal as a country, to become Atmanirbhar, as we say, right? Self-reliant. So I think that is where I will stop for this question. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Professor White, as a leader within the Australian quantum ecosystem, curious if you think there are things that the Indian market can learn from how you've collaborated with alternate nations, particularly from a research perspective, for example.
I wouldn't like to tell India what to do. But one thing that we worked on very hard in Australia over the last 20 years was getting rid of silos within Australia between the research communities. So we've been running these so-called centres of excellence for 20 years, and they bring together young researchers from all over the country, often in very different kind of technical areas, all together to work on a common problem. And these quantum missions, I think, look very much like that. And they've been very successful because they run for 7 years and because they're giving the young people a chance to fail. You know, in our normal funding system in Australia, you apply for science funding every 3 years. You really only apply for something you've already done, and then you say, oh, I'm sure I can do it, and then, you know, and it's a very short-term kind of approach. With these 7-year systems, you can go for a very ambitious goal where you really don't know that you can get there at the end. And international collaboration is key to that as well. My lab has people from India, Brazil, Austria, Australia. The only time it gets tense is either at World Cup and soccer or cricket. Apart from that, we get on extremely well with each other, trying to do these new things. On the technology front, I think, in fact, Australia can learn something from India. So hearing the figure earlier that you've gone from 100 startups to 100,000 startups in 10 years, Australia has not been that successful. And so we've been focusing in the last few years on improving that translation step, getting information out of the lab into something that's going to have impact in society. And the thing we've found is people don't care if it's quantum or not. I mean, I'm going to make you upset and mention Schrodinger's cat. No one cares if it's Schrodinger's cat, right? No one cares if it's superposition. What we do is we go to areas of the economy like mining or ag tech, or things that Australia cares a lot about, and say, what are your pain points? What are your problems? If you had a magic wand and you could wave it, what could you solve? And about half the time we find quantum science and technology has a path. We mightn't have the answer straight away, but we've got a path to a solution.
Interesting. Thank you. So actually, just to pick up on a point you made there, when I think about the requirement for collaboration, you can think about it between nations, and then you can think about it on a more local functional level, so between research, between academia, between industry, government. But it sounds like there's a slightly broken down layer below that, actually, where it's about, before that can happen, research institutions even need to collaborate as well. So it's a little bit more complex, potentially, than you would think from the outside looking in, even from my perspective.
It may surprise you that universities are competitive with each other, yes. And trying to make them realise that it's not a zero-sum game, that a rising tide lifts all boats, that you do much better working together than competing with each other. And that will generate more income for research, and that will bring out more results, has been one of the key learnings.
Excellent. And would love to hear the perspective from the side of industry as well, in terms of the...
Yeah, so I'm part of industry, but I engage a lot with academia, so I'm sort of on the blurry lines in some way. I think all the points made were excellent. Maybe I'll pick some of those, right? I think the point Urbasi made about science and technology, that's a great model. But the other thing we observe, I think you'll all appreciate, is that the pace of translating science to technology is just accelerating every year, right? And so entities involved in it, including governments like the NQM, view it together, right? That's why in the mission you also see there's a TRL-8 right there as a goal. And even industry views things that way, that industry recognizes that we have to invest in the science and then quickly get it to technology and application. So what happens because of that, it's unavoidable, is every country, every entity will look for some angle of leadership, right? And that, of course, hurts collaboration. But because the speed is so important, they also recognize that cooperation is also important. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to move faster, because you'll see that those who lead have actually also cooperated to actually build an ecosystem around themselves or to move faster. So that's why there is a lot of potential to collaborate, both on the science side and on the technology side. algorithms is a great space that Urbasi also mentioned. In fact, over the last 2.5 years, we've seen these 5 working groups evolve, which are international working groups in the algorithm space. There's one for sustainability, that's the newest one, material science, high energy physics, healthcare, life sciences, and there's one more which I'm forgetting right now. And each of these have member organizations from across the world, academic organizations, research organizations, industries, who have organically come together and said, look, this is an area where quantum computing has a big potential to make an impact. We don't yet know how, we don't yet know what the algorithms are, but we are going to put our best minds together to shape that, right? And they're putting out white papers, they're running research projects, and the fact that these are across countries and different sectors already lay out these 5 lanes on which we can build collaborations, right? So we don't even have to discover. On the theoretical side, on the theory side, I think it's a very exciting time that even we in IBM Research have recognized is, the theory of computing is back. A few decades ago, there was a lot of work in computer science theory that laid the foundation of classical computing. But now, with quantum computing, quantum information science, AI, and classical all coming together, the mathematics of computing sort of has to be rediscovered. And that will define, again, foundations for advancing the technology of the future. So that's another place where a lot of collaboration can happen. So I do think there's broad lanes.
Just to extend on that slightly, so Professor White spoke to the point of the competitive nature that actually does exist within universities, research centres, etc., when you think of it on a slightly broken down level within those stakeholder groups. Could you talk a little bit to what that looks like from the side of industry? Because if you break out what industry looks like, you have the behemoths like IBM at one end of the food chain. At the other end of the food chain, you have this increasingly rapidly growing startup ecosystem, something that's very much prevalent within the Indian market. How do they operate, and is there a mode in which they what does that relationship look like? Is there a mode, are there things we need to consider to ensure they operate symbiotically, knowledge sharing, but in a way that doesn't kill the startup ecosystem from growing in the way that it needs to?
Oh yeah, that's a great point you're highlighting. And there's so many models. There's the traditional model, of course, where big industry will invest in a startup that is strategically aligned. That's kind of bilateral. That continues. But there is a big move around community and open source in all sectors of technology, I would say. AI for sure, and even for quantum, right? So if you look at what's happened there is the programming layer for quantum, at least from an IBM perspective, is something called Qiskit, which is open source from day one, and it has everybody engaged in developing it and using it. And so that creates a very concrete technology space for everybody to come together and work together, right? And the other thing that I see happening is both the big industry and the startups recognize the need to collaborate, because the big guys know that they cannot build everything from scratch. Yeah. And they need the ecosystem to come around their big things. And the startups are also looking naturally for a big partner, someone to learn with and someone to build with. And so industry, IBM for instance has something called a startup network, right? Where if you're a credible startup, you can apply for becoming a member of that network, and you get priority access to computing services and things like that, and you become part of a community. And IBM has a stake, of course, to engage with that ecosystem, because that helps us understand what's going on there, right? How are they thinking? What are the algorithms shaping? So again, there's a lot of inherent motivation, and there are these structures around either open community participation or these kind of networks that are forming up that bring startups and big industry together.
Yeah, I think that's one of the wonderful things about the quantum ecosystem, just the awareness that that relationship needs to happen harmoniously. I think if you look at other more established ecosystems or markets, there's more of a reluctance to interact between startup and corporate, for example. I'd love to touch a little bit more on the subject of policy. It's refreshing being here, listening to the talks yesterday, because when we go to talks in other geographies like Europe and the US, policy very rarely actually crops up in conversation. It's more about the more bullish end of the market and making money and when are we going to, etc., and investment themed conversations. I'd love to get a little bit more insight into how you, just the thoughts around policy. It's a market that's growing at a rate of knots, especially when you are thinking about driving to supremacy or commercialization, etc. To embed policy properly, and this is a question to all really, to get a balanced view, to embed policy in the most appropriate way, whether it's policies around training and development, inclusion and diversity in the workplace, the variety of things that it might be associated with. Do we need to slow down slightly on, how do you do it in a way that you have the time to embed policy effectively, whilst also noting that this is a technology that's growing at a rate of knots and needs to continue to advance as such?
See, the policy framework has to go hand in hand with all these technologies. There is no way, because all the governments around the world are invested in it. Now, what, for example, if you want that all our financial system should be secure, our banking, fin sector, all that have to be secure. Obviously, there has to be clarity at the highest level that this has to be ensured that it is secure. And quantum secure is another vertical in that. So, it will come. For example, we have tons of medical data. How do you ensure it remains safe, not only now, but from years to come? You know what they say, na, you store now and harvest later, whatever that term is. So there is there is a requirement of policy in that. There is no two ways about it, because once the policy comes, then all the stakeholders are sensitized. Right now, in our system, when you go to bank, I don't think all of them have appreciated that there is something they need to worry about. This will not happen in a day. We have our agencies, CA and whatever agencies we have. We have to educate them. We have to tell them what are the dangers. And then they are all coming along. Mm-hmm. So the policy thing, in my view, is important when you want to percolate these things, especially in the sector which touches society. And fintech is one area which touches every one of us in the room, because we want our everything to be safe. So policy will come. And where it is a strategic thing, of course, there will be a different kind of policy. And I have a feeling right now it's pretty nimble in quantum technologies. It's not hammer driven, but in next 5 years, things might change. That's my short answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor White?
All right. So we've had some recent experience of this in Australia, because we tried about 12, 15 years ago trying to get a national quantum policy up and trying to have policy at state level. We have 6 states, not 17. And it was too early. There was just no interest. And then the silver lining to the pandemic was suddenly governments worldwide really worried about critical supply, self-sufficiency in a way that they hadn't worried about it perhaps before. So that was great. We suddenly had a willing partner in government. But what we also needed were scientists at the universities who were willing to look kind of at the longer term and beyond their immediate research interests and really engage with government about how do we build policy that will generate a local ecosystem. You know, 90% of our students aren't going to become university academics. I'd love them all to have jobs doing quantum technology onshore in Australia. But in Australia for the past 20 years, we've mostly exported people around the world. We haven't generated a lot of local industry, so I hear a resonance there with India as well. And And so the policy conversations were with government about, okay, how can we make that happen? On what timescale? What's realistic? What do key performance indicators look like? How will we know we've failed? And evidence-based policy, which I'm not sure what everyone else's experience is, but you don't always get that with government, but we're really pushing very hard.
That's an interesting point, because we know that globally one of the largest bottlenecks to driving quantum technology advancement is access to top-tier talent, people in the space. Yesterday a common theme was this subject of knowledge transfer. But then also there's this requirement to actually have people in market within your ecosystem building and contributing. Curious how do you balance, everything's like on a paradigm in terms of everything, there's a trade-off in everything that you kind of think about within driving quantum technology, but how do you balance knowledge transfer then with developing local talent and retaining, importantly, that talent within the ecosystem, within the nation, so for example within India or more broadly? That's a question to anyone who wants to take it.
I mean, you know, of course, the points have already been made about policy, and I mean, you know, I'm an academic, so I mean, I'll make a very, not a very heavy point here, but then a very important point nonetheless, that, you know, we are talking about development of the ecosystem. One of the things we need is, of course, human resource development. And this is a point which otherwise won't be made unless I sort of make it in this, you know, space. We are very good in exporting human resources abroad. Andrew is very good in importing them from us, okay, personally and otherwise. But then on a more serious note, I think, you know, something that we need to really think about, and I think at NQM there is some thought on this, to have something which makes it lucrative, attractive, and you know, to incentivize our young people to contribute to our national mission. I mean, you know, we are of course not young people on the stage. I mean, Luke is the exception. But then, having said that, you know, the people who are the master students or the PhD students, quantum is a buzzword currently, right, globally, and so it's even worse for us now because, you know, the brain drain is worse now than it wasn't when it wasn't a buzzword. So I think we need to really have some serious thoughts on policy here, on trying to ensure that we retain the people within the country. I think otherwise, you know, all these things that we're talking about developing, and, you know, we have some great ideas, we have a great vision, but it won't happen unless we have people who are working with us on this. And so this is something we brought into the NQM, DPR, and so on and so forth. But I do hope that along with all the other more, you know, critical issues, this one is given equal importance, because we are definitely seeing more brain drain now than ever before.
Yeah, it doesn't matter which market you go to, it's of critical importance, and it's without doubt one of the largest bottlenecks to driving advancement. I guess it comes down to, on a really, really basic level, as a top tier candidate or individual, where can I get the best education? And then where's the access to the best jobs possible for me and the most attractive jobs? On that subject, I guess IBM is a big driver of potential jobs at the end of that journey for top talent. What kind of things what knowledge can you share from an IBM perspective in terms of that?
Yeah, I think that's another very important point for us in IBM, and also particularly in IBM Research. We're global organizations with footprint in many countries, and personally for myself, I worked, you know, half of my career in New York in IBM Research and the other half in India, right? So sort of seen both sides of the story in terms of talent, availability, and what we need to do. So the good news is in India, there is a continuous increase of talent wanting to stay and do things here. And I think that's largely driven by the growth in the technology industry and its relevance to the country. Deep tech, whether it's driven by MNCs like IBM or others, or whether it's driven by some local industries that are being a little aggressive, or whether it's driven by startups. But there is sort of a gap in the middle where, for a fresh PhD coming out to think about doing deep tech research in the country, there is still a gap. Or for a BTech coming out of an IIT saying, should I do my PhD in India? There's a gap. And the gap is not because we don't have great PIs. We do, actually. There's a lot of great talent in the faculty. But the purposeful excitement of research, I think that is what in the ecosystem we need to grow. Industry academia partnerships can be a piece of it. I myself, out of IBM Research in India, we have multi-year research partnership with some of the institutes, including IISc. So we do see that when certain students get involved in projects there and they get the mentorship from some of the top talent in the industry research lab, it creates an interest to do real work. It validates the possibility of being in India and doing great work. So we need to encourage more of that and see more of that. But I also agree that somehow in the way we incentivize research in the country, we need to keep pushing for making it more and more a first-class citizen. Yep. I'm really excited about the Anusandhan NRF and hope to see where that takes us, to the next level. But that does need a kind of a mission mode view in the country.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder if, I think it's two parts. It's when you've got great talent, making sure they are interested in quantum technologies. Then it's also getting more, if you think of like top of funnel, interest in just in this space. I wonder if there's an element here where there's a requirement from more of a market optics perspective, awareness of quantum technologies. We talk about this in other markets, but it's this requirement for quantum tech potentially to step outside of the echo chamber that it currently exists in somewhat. And to Professor Sood's point, I do think this year is potentially the opportunity to do that if nations and stakeholders within the market actually leverage the opportunity posed by the International Year of Quantum effectively.
Just to reflect on that last point, we set up a couple of years ago one of these massive open online courses, a so-called MOOC, called Quantum Technology for Decision Makers. And we co-taught it with the business school at the University of Queensland between physics and business. And it was aimed at people who didn't have a physics education, but they might be CEOs, CFOs, COOs. In companies, they might be senior government ministers or they might be senior bureaucrats. They've heard about quantum, but they want to know what's going on. And that course has been tremendously useful in getting the conversation going. And I think you could set up something like that in India, adapted to local conditions, that would be incredibly successful in getting that conversation going. With no advertising, we've had 500,000 people go through the course. Wow. Around the world, actually. A surprising number of people from the US and Canada. I'm not sure how they found it. It must just have been a Google search. But it's been also very useful for us to see the kind of things that they're worried about. And what the end point of the course is they write for themselves, they don't have to share it with us, a business case for their sector or their business or their government department or their school. How are we going to interact with quantum? On what timescale do we need to worry about it? And what actions do we need to take next? And having that conversation has been incredibly useful.
Exactly, because I do think we're still slightly in a world where within quantum technologies we're talking very scientifically. Everything's super complex when it's spoken about. I go to conferences and I sometimes leave more confused than when I walked in.
Oh, me too.
Well,
that's a proper physics conference,
it's expected
right?
From me, but it's not expected from you. And I think to anyone outside of the space, that just makes it so hard to actually interact with it and gain any level of interest. And I think to your point, it's quantum technologies offer a tremendous enabling technology. They're an enabling technology to drive towards real-world solutions for real-world problems. I think if you start to actually break it down in a simple way and talk about what those problems are, that's how you capture the younger generations and the students in the world.
There's a tension here. We love, as practitioners, talking about how weird quantum is and what it tells us about the universe. And Urbasi's done like foundation physics papers that are world leading, right? And teach us new ways of seeing about the universe. But if you're an end user in ag tech or mining or financial services, you don't care. You just want to know, does it give me an advantage that my
Does it
competitor
help?
doesn't have?
Yeah.
Or can it let me do something that I couldn't do? I was talking to someone from logistics in the UK a few years ago, and he said, I wish you quantum folk could get over this exponential quantum supremacy advantage. I just want 2% that my competitor doesn't have.
Exactly, there you go.
And so there's a tension here, right? Because if we're thinking about end users, they don't really care about the science and technology, and nor should they. But as people developing it, we need to think about how can we grow that sector so we can get to the end users.
Exactly. We see this all the time, especially in quantum securities. So we speak to quantum, we've seen it a lot in the US. We talk to quantum security companies building and deploying these technologies with a goal of driving into the end user base of early adopters, so critical infrastructure businesses. And they've struggled for the last couple of years in terms of actually getting any traction in there. And there's become like an epiphany moment where they've gone, we've been talking too technically. Because if I'm trying to sell this solution or have this conversation with someone who's a non-quantum tech individual, when I start talking about the nuances of the technology, it just confuses them. No one wants to be confused, as opposed to saying, hey, this can help you. What's your problem? How can we solve it? And not talking about the technology.
Yeah, if I can add. One quick point here, right? Because this is so fundamental to us in IBM, we'll kind of live and breathe it every day is, we realized early on this notion of quantum supremacy is a bit fake because it's a very technical thing. I got to prove quantum's better on one little thing somewhere, like who cares? I mean, yes, it makes for great news. So what we've realized is a much better goal to bring the ecosystem together is quantum utility. Can you show useful things with quantum, right? And if you set that as an objective, then everybody gets incentivized to work together. You cannot sit in a lab and show quantum usefulness because you don't have that mining guy with you, you know? So I think that mindset is super critical.
A requirement to humanize the technology, essentially.
No,
Professor
I was going to make the same point that there are two sides to it. One, on the science side, which is still developing. It is still not it's not like, where the computing machines have become extremely powerful and, CPUs, GPUs and so on. But there also, people don't care how a CPU or GPU works.
At all.
Actually, they just need to see that it works for them. That here we are in a transition phase because there is anxiety on both sides to show each other. Like we still need high-end tech. So it will happen. This is a transition phase. And if you see even the reports which are coming out, 3 years back, there was not a talk of business case as much as it is in the last 3 years. Even World Economic Forum, which collates this, the January report is on that business thing. Exactly to break this barrier, that you don't have to really know each component of this to know it will take you there, which is also true for AI. Nobody has to understand transformer model and so on to use it. Few people will invest their lifetime in foundation models, but others will have use this. So I think in quantum is in that space. It is so transient, I am saying, it's not even clear whether the superconducting qubits will rule the world. It's not clear.
It's not.
In the last 3 years, it looks as if it's the end of the world. I'm sure IBM will have a view on it. But there are competing platforms which might win over in next 5-10 years. The people are working, whether the spin qubit, a photonic qubit, whatever you want. So I have a feeling this conversation is happening. In a sense, it is historic.
Yes.
25 years down the line, if some of you are living like Urbasi, they will know. They will know how primitive we were in our discussions at this stage. This is HPC of 1955.
Completely.
At that time, what we discussed with the punching machines, we are at that stage. Our errors are not under control right now. So what Amith is talking about computing, error correction for a specific problem you can work on. But it's not a universal solution. So we have to reach that. And what is happening, it has become also a rat race in some sense, because Google has sent supremacy, XYZ also have to say. So it's a really transition period, and in a way historic moment, because all of this may not survive after a few years.
I hope it does.
I'm not discouraging you, but I'm just saying.
I'll be out of a job if it doesn't, so hopefully it does.
It is a good phase to be in. Thank you.
So to add my 2 cents to this very nice, discussion. So I hope all of us on this stage live for the next 25 years. Yes. And so, but then you talked about superconducting qubits, but the latest on that is the photonic one. The latest news last week is a Nature paper from a photonic company. But then one thing I just want to say that, we do have a little bit of a divide between, as Andrew mentioned, between academia and the business model. In the sense that academics, how much ever they try, they can't avoid at least that one equation in what they are trying to discuss, and then of course we fail to convey the excitement to the end user. So I would say that some academics have also now ventured into their own startups, and I think these are the kind of things which we also need to encourage, because at least these startups are being driven by people who do know the technical thing. So I would appeal to the policymakers to actually also support these initiatives. I have one myself. I have co-founded a startup in quantum, and I think that has been a very little brave for me, because I'm more in the Andrew mode of explaining superposition and the Schrodinger cat. But then I think at some point we have to take this initiative so that some of the things we do actually make their way to the end users, whether it's the mining or whatever. But then we are not maybe as good in selling as, let's say, the people who are from the business sector. So we do need that support for marketing and so on and so forth, so that, because at least we mean well and we know what we are talking about, right? So there are a few of these also in India and outside, and I'm hoping that they will receive encouragement, and not just those who can really go and say, we have the 1,000 qubit already, I think there are companies like that as well. Not IBM, they do have a better roadmap, but then, so I think this is also something to look out for.
Just to follow up on the last 2 speakers, the other thing we need to get across as a message to our universities and to government is that failure is okay in the startup community. 90% of startups will fail, and that's great, because the people in that startup learn a lesson and do another startup, and they accrete. And we had an example of that just recently in Australia. We had 3 of our young researchers come with an idea, and they said, we want to try this, and we ran it through the kind of translation and commercialization program, and it fell apart. And they came back to us 6 months later and said, we've had another idea, and we've learnt from last time. All right. And we funded them less than $200,000 over 12 months, and at the end of 14 months, tell a lie, and at the end of that time, their company got acquired for 40 million Australian. One of the PhD students handed in their thesis on the Thursday and was a cash millionaire multiply the next Tuesday. Lovely young kids, but gosh, I could have done with a couple of million when I was 24. And I went to them, this is great, you can buy a house. I went, no, but we're going to buy a car. And it's like, oh, guys. Anyway, but failure was part of the process. And I think part of the issue traditionally in the university sector, and also I think at least in government sector in Australia, is failure is seen as a negative, not as a learning experience. And we have to turn that around.
Yes.
So as long as that 10% succeed, everyone else is getting employed, everyone else is building knowledge locally and an ecosystem locally, and that's great.
Thank you. Wonderful answers, and dare I say it, alignment, it seems like, across government, industry and academia, which is a very good start. I'm not sure how we're doing for time. We've got a couple more. How are we doing? 5 more minutes. Okay. There's loads more I could ask, but I do want to give time for Q&A from the audience. I'll just ask one final question. I guess it would just be you've already spoken to it, but would love to hear just your own final perspectives on the vision for the quantum ecosystem in India.
No, I think we need to be very open in pushing all frontiers, be it the basic science, be it the translational part, and more importantly, how do we create market for these products? Because these startups are in the early phases, and these startups need business. And this government support to startups is a myth. It can go up to a point, but not that. So all the startups which have succeeded in the past are the ones which have some products in the market. What government should do, whether there can be incentive for taking those products, create market, and I think this and all these 3-4 things have to be done simultaneously in order for us to reap the benefits of this technology.
So of course that sums it up really well, and it's the PSA, so I think that is going to be our vision. But then one thing I would like to just add here is that, India, I think one thing we can say, safely, that I think we do have very bright people, in the student and, and of course, even beyond students, maybe we are also quite bright. So the idea would be that, we should aim to also not only just do what all we are all doing and, the whole world is doing, but one of the things which we are very good at is, of course, fundamental science. And so in some sense, we should not forget that there should be good focus on fundamental science as well, so that that forms the technology for tomorrow. And if we are actually working on that now, then we will actually have our bread and butter even after the 7-year mission, right? So in some sense, we have to also lay the groundwork for what will happen later. And I think we specifically as an ecosystem, we are very good at that. I think we have excellent scientists, who are working on things which, so the laser is an example. When it was invented, we didn't know that we will have eye surgery using the laser. So, we have to have incentivization for such research as well, so that it forms the basis for things which we haven't even thought about now. So, and I think as Indians, as an Indian ecosystem, we are going to be particularly good at that. And so 10 years down the line, we will actually dictate what the technology will be and others will follow.
I have no doubt.
So that is something we should keep in mind, I think.
I think we should think of this as a start of our journey, right? And I think the way technology and science is moving is you need to build on it every year. So we cannot say that, okay, now we have NQM, we're set for the next 5 years. No, it's kind of like you're taking your first step onto the, burning coals. So you need to get faster, otherwise you're going to burn. So every year we need to keep expanding as a country, as an ecosystem, industry, government, academia, and say, okay, what's next that we need to add here? What more do we need to do? So I hope we can do that. Urbasi, I think faculty are really good sellers. If you look at how you sell proposals, you just need to understand the buyer.
So you reminded me. So we are one of the 14 successful technology groups. So I think we sold to the committees quite well. But I don't know about the mining industry. That is what is worrying me right now.
So my goal is for both India and Australia, by 2047, the quantum revolution will have changed technology to the point that it's just built in at all layers of society, like semiconductor, like electricity, like steam back in the day. And our students will be amazed that we ever had to have a dialogue like this. That's my goal.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Should we pass to the audience? Lots of hands. I saw you first. In the blue.
Hi. So there are two questions. One is to my UK and Australian partners, that how do you see quantum and supercomputing threat cases affect societal and economic sovereignty in your respective countries? And to the Indian counterparts I have, that how do you think Bharat, along with its partner countries, lead the reformed equitable global quantum framework governance model that is just towards all, especially global south countries? Thank you.
Only thing is, Shagun has to be told it will take another half an hour.
That's a very, very big question.
So it's a very deep question, and
We'd be happy to answer. Maybe let's do it over a coffee.
Over a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it has been discussed in last 1 hour.
and we're about to get thrown off the stage.
Sir, very good morning. Sir, here.
Does anyone have a very quick
Professor, sir,
question?
here. Sir, very good morning here. Hello.
We need our products to be of high quality, to be acceptable for exports as well as to check the imports. So metrology needs to be part of the policy.
Sir, just to add on to him, I wanted to see, because national Mausam policy has been already, I think, is in place. National Mausam, just to add on to him, there is a national Mausam which was officially launched by Prime Minister in last week during 150 years of IMD. Can you think, could you throw some light on that one?
It's not, it's metrology, so it's actually precision, technology. So forming standards for various technologies. NPL, he's the director of NPL, Delhi. And so just wanted to say, Gopal, that we are trying our best to get the International Year of Quantum global event on metrology in India. And I'm hoping that we have all the support. So let's see, people are fighting at a very high level to get it to their country, but we are also there, and so let's see, then I think that will be a very good boost in IYQ as well.
Sir, to Ajay Kumar Sood, sir, here, sir, here. Yeah, what are the most impactful contribution of NIST in in advancing quantum measurement and metrology, sir? What are the most impactful contribution of NIST in advancing quantum measurements and metrology? NIST. Yeah.
What are the applications you're talking?
How NIST database is contributing to the quantum measurements and metrology in that area?
NIST in Boulder.
Oh, NIST.
Yes.
So you are talking. See, NIST has given algorithm for PQC, right? The one which is tested and so on. So that many people in India are working. How to? I mean, there are even close to some products and so on. So I said that is one aspect, but also on the fundamental side, what are the other possible ways to have quantum security is also being worked out. There are groups in the country, if that is the question.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Yeah. It is not a barren field.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So Professor Sood, one thing you should definitely say is that we are also involved in the standards for quantum. TEC and DOT, they are involved in all these organizations, and we are actually amping up our participation in the global standardization bodies as well. The ITU and HC and so on. So we are there, and we are actually increasing our participation so that it doesn't become something only few countries control. So.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions. There was lots of other hands raised. It's time for us to leave the stage quickly so that we can move on with the agenda. But feel free to grab any of us outside over coffee or tea, and we'll be happy to answer them. Thank you, everyone.